There's better economic news too over the Tasman as the New Zealand government's reform package begins to show dividends. And while it may have been hit harder by the financial crisis than Australia, on face value at least, New Zealand appears to be moving forward at a faster pace, with an emissions trading scheme up and running and a broadband rollout well underway. I spoke to New Zealand's Deputy Prime Minister Bill English a short time ago. Bill English, welcome to Lateline Business.
Thank you.
We've had a month here of record trade surplus for June. New Zealand talks about rebalancing the economy. What's your strategy for sustainable export turnaround?
Well, probably the biggest step we've taken is to do a tax switch where we've, in the last budget, announced a change in the tax system where we've increased GST because New Zealanders have been over-consuming and over-borrowing in the last 5 or 6 years in particular. Increase the effective tax rate on property investment. At the same time, we've cut company tax and income tax rates. So our top income tax rate's now 33 cents and our tax rates on savings are down to 28. And on the average income, the average wage around 17.5 cents is now the statutory rate. So we're encouraging savings and investment, the capital formation we need for stronger exporting, and discouraging the excessive consumption and excessive borrowing we've seen over the last decade.
15% GST you now have in New Zealand. Now, putting up GST here in Australia would be absolutely unthinkable. How has it gone down?
Well, pretty well. We went through a fairly open process with the public. We set up a tax working group just to see whether we could use the tax system to help rebalance the economy. And what it did that was unusual was it published all its proceedings as it went. So every couple of weeks there was new material coming into the public environment. So it's gone down pretty well. It comes into effect on the 1st of October, and I suppose that'll be the ultimate test. But the average family will be about $25 a week better off after the income tax cuts and their increase in GST.
Let me ask you about a couple of your policies. Now, very importantly, New Zealand has just brought in, I think it's only a month old, your ETS, your emissions trading scheme. There have been squeals from the farming sector, and the Roundtable says it would rather have a carbon tax and perhaps a bit of a delay. But you do, I think, have an emerging price on carbon. What has that done for business, that greater certainty?
Well, business has been, it's pretty ambivalent about the ETS. But the first tranches of it came in a couple of years ago, and in the last couple of months we've just brought in electricity and fuel. But what it's done for business, I think, is just give them some certainty. So they now know that every country has climate change policy. In New Zealand, that is a very moderate ETS because it's had a pretty moderate impact, and that means we won't be pursuing big subsidies or strong regulatory requirements around energy or use of fossil fuels. We've got an ETS, people can see what it is, and we believe that over the next couple of years that will help settle our investment environment. There's some signs that that's happening now, because business prefers the certainty even if it's not that keen on the tool.
Talking about investment and foreign investment, in Australia we're concerned, or there are rising concerns about the idea of selling the farm, selling land to overseas investors. Now, I understand that the New Zealand government, which has a pretty similarly lax view of acquiring land by foreigners, has actually now put your foot down about one proposed takeover of dairy. Is that because you're concerned about the economic interest?
Well, there's a rising, I think, a rising level of concern in New Zealand, similarly to Australia. And in New Zealand, farmland is particularly important because it's perceived as one of our strategic advantages, and also, particularly in the dairy industry, the structure of vertical integration from production right through the supply chain to the consumer market. So there's a bit of sensitivity about it, and the government is aware of that. We've been looking at our overseas investment rules to see whether we can get the right balance between protecting those things that are important to New Zealanders, such as the ownership of farmland, on the one hand, but on the other hand, we're an economy that needs a good inflow of foreign investment for jobs and better incomes.
Another controversial area at this end is the national broadband network proposed by the government. You're putting in an ultra-fast broadband network to 75% of homes. You obviously think it's important.
Yes, that was a decision we made as an opposition party back in 2008. Certainly paying some attention to the debate that was going on in Australia at the time and continues. So we've committed about $1.5 billion. It's a different model for delivering the broadband, but I think the same general intention that this is a technology that is potentially transformative both for business, for education, and one where the consumer demand for it is still a bit uncertain, and that means it's not a viable commercial prospect. So we're hoping to start rolling that out towards the end of this year.
And finally, Deputy Prime Minister, what are the odds for a Wallaby win in Christchurch on Saturday?
Oh, well, you've got a great coach there. Just the players just seem to be under a bit of pressure at the moment. I think the odds would be about 20%.
Well, I gather we've got a giant New Zealand rugby ball sitting in Circular Quay next month, so you're very trusting. Thank you very much, Bill English, for talking to Late Line Business.
Thank you.